have the default slide?
Yeah.
We revised the agenda a little bit today, and we're going to start off with just spending a little more time networking a little bit, since a lot of our meetings just got straight to business. So spend a little time doing some introductions, a little icebreaker, and then allowing for some time for everyone to give some updates on the work that you're currently doing to support the blueprint. And then we're going to regroup and talk about some of the summer outreach efforts that we've been working on, and then really move the conversation into a broader conversation around working child nutrition programs as a whole. So looking at some of those short-term immediate things that we're able to act on, but really start looking at that long-term on how we might want to prioritize our work going forward. So with that, I'm just going to do a little bit of icebreaker. If everyone, I don't know, it's kind of a small group, maybe break out into 2 or 3 people that you don't know, and just introduce yourself, your organization, why you're here, and in spirit of summer meals, which is not very summery right now, but what is your favorite summertime food or nostalgic summer memory or summer food, or and then we'll just regroup and maybe share some of that, and then get into the agenda.
And so to make it easy, we'll probably just have everybody on the phone in one small group, so we'll mute ourselves so that you all can talk. That works?
Does that mean we're supposed to unmute ourselves, I'm guessing, on the phone?
Yes.
Okay, can you guys hear me? Okay, sorry.
Let's see. Are we all here? Should we get started?
Sure, Carolyn, you want to go first?
Sure. Hello, my name is Carolyn Waite, and I work with Share Our Strengths, No Get Hungry campaign. So I am here because my colleague Colleen on our Cooking Matters team based in Colorado was part of the Blueprint Advisory Committee and thought it would be great to get us connected just so that I can learn from you guys, and then I can share out any resources or best practices from across the country. And let's see, my favorite summertime food. I don't know, I just have great memories of shucking corn on the back porch. So yeah, fresh corn when it's in season, I think, is a great summertime food.
That sounds great. I love that too. I'm Lauren Rose. I'm the programs director at the Food Bank for Larimer County in Northern Colorado, and have responsibility for our child and senior nutrition programs. And let's see, favorite summer, I would probably say watermelon, and we've been eating it lately already, but Carolyn, I know you're not experiencing this, but it's basically been winter again for the 7th time this week here.
Oh no, that's sad.
We're ready to move on to summer. So.
Hi, this is Ashley. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I am the summer meal program supervisor with Department of Education, and my favorite summertime food I think has to be like the popsicles or the shaved ice.
Danielle, I feel like I saw you trying to talk a minute ago, but we couldn't hear you. Like I see your mouth moving, but I can't hear you. No words. Carolyn, while Danielle's looking into that, we're just starting Cooking Matters here at our food bank as well. So
Oh, awesome.
yeah, with the staff at your Denver office and getting that launched. So we're really excited to start that this summer too.
Yeah, so exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of them actually came to DC recently and did a demo for those of us who don't get to experience the courses on a regular basis, and it was really fun. So.
Nice. We're trying to figure out just between our agency partners and things like that where it makes the most sense to start first.
Yeah.
It'd be great to get it going. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Danielle, do you think you've got audio yet?
No.
No.
Darn it.
Aww. Do you want to just chat in what your favorite summer food is? Corn. I feel ya. Ooh, yeah.
Is it nicer out in DC, Carolyn?
Yeah, the weather's actually been pretty gorgeous here the past few days, like 70s and not too humid. So this is like the perfect time of year in DC before it's 90s and humid.
Oh yeah, I came to the SNEB conference a couple years ago there, and it was in the middle of July, and I got ice cream and walked outside, and it literally was running down my hands. Like I was like, okay, that was not a good choice. I forgot what humidity. Just living here, you forget what humidity is like in that environment.
It's rough. It's rough.
Yeah.
Especially because everyone in DC like walks and takes public transportation. Even if you drive, you probably have to park like outside of your building, like in a separate parking garage. So yeah, you can get pretty gross.
Yeah, definitely. I grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee mainly, and it was the same experience there. And I think I've just been away from it for a while and have forgotten what it's like in the heat of it.
Yeah. Although classic moment of the grass is always greener on the other side. I was talking with someone from Utah who's like, oh, I love being out here. It's so great for my skin. I'm like, I love being in a place like Utah where it's great for my hair. So, you can never really have it both ways.
True. Yeah, my skin looks way better when humid climate's true, but yeah, that's fair. Danielle, any luck? No. Well, darn.
Yeah. Danielle, when are you starting summer meal service? Wow, that's coming up.
We have one site starting Tuesday too. Are you starting most of yours on June 3rd, Danielle? Oh, nice.
Let's try this.
Oh, I think we can hear you.
Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
we got you.
Yes.
Oh my God, what a shit show. Today is our last day of school, so I was already feeling a little out of sorts, and now like my entire docking station just went bloop, gone.
Oh.
And then I realized I was wearing a Weld Food Bank sweatshirt, and Lauren could see me, and she'd
Okay,
probably.
I thought that's what you had on. Like, excuse me,
Danielle. Messed up there for a minute. Back now. So yes, the majority of our sites start on June 3rd. We have 4 sites opening on Tuesday. And like I said, today is our last day of school. So we have 36 sites to close down today.
Wow.
And then 4 to reopen by Tuesday. So I was going to text Carrie Thielen this morning and be like, dude, bad day for a call. Like, no. But we're here.
Impressive. Very impressive.
Exactly. Lauren, how many sites did you end up with?
We have 10 like traditional sites and then 11 food truck sites.
Not 11.
Yeah, so I feel pretty good about that considering I started from scratch cold emailing people in January. So,
holy cow, that's awesome.
yeah, so I'm excited to see. I mean, I'm sure some of them will have like, 3 to 5 kids show up the first time and then, need to continue to do some outreach and recruitment throughout the
In a couple months, so one of the meetings, because
I'm going to mute myself.
some creative ideas.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to share what you talked about or any summertime food foods that you want to share with the group on the phone? We'll go. Yeah.
This is Carolyn. Both Danielle and I said corn.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Grilled corn, yeah. Or corn, yeah.
We said watermelon. We all kind of agreed on that and the various things you can do with it, and how to pick a good one and have yummy drinks with it.
Anyone else?
Lily and I had a great conversation about her passion around child nutrition and her internship. So we were like kind of talking really fast so we could also answer the other question. And it was the same, sitting out on the patio and grilling and being outside. But we had a great other conversation that wasn't so related.
And yes, thanks for Lily, where she is interning with CDE School Nutrition, so she's joining us today. She's also been helping us with some of our summer outreach tracking, so you came at the perfect time to help with some of this work. All right, so we're just gonna jump into a few summer meals outreach updates of the work that we've been doing over the last couple months. So first, let's go to the next slide. So first I have a couple of updates. So it feels like this wasn't 2 months ago, but it was actually just a couple weeks ago. We had the summer yard sign proposal approved from the governing council, which is very exciting news. Kevin has purchased, Kevin, thank you, has purchased 750 summer yard signs that I believe were just delivered today.
They came in last night.
Last night?
Whenever anyone wants to pick up yard signs, let us know. You can come by the office, or we can maybe make a delivery if it's relatively close, but.
Yeah, so there's a few ways we're gonna distribute them, so you can pick them up at Trailhead. And you can also, our CDE is going to be delivering some on site when we're visiting summer meal sites this summer through our reviews or monitoring visits. There's a Colorado School Nutrition Association conference coming up, so we're going to deliver a ton then because we went through the sponsor list and a good amount of people were going to be at this conference. And then the rest of the people who we don't cover with these options will get meal signs. So it actually ended up being quite a small amount that might need actual meal signs.
Hey, Carrie.
Yeah.
Can we get them, can you bring them up on June 10th with you to Loveland for that meeting with all the food banks? Because I imagine that we can probably get a lot to the partner agencies for Care and Share, Food Bank of the Rockies.
Yeah, so we'll deliver a lot to the conference. I know we talked with some of the folks there and they're gonna set up a table for us.
Sweet.
Yeah. And we already received an email. I just wanted to share just the gratitude that people had for doing this and they wanted to let you know, thank you for doing this, so great. Next, I wanted to talk about the summer outreach email that went out to partners. So hopefully you guys all received that email. So we are beyond impressed and a little overwhelmed with the response of how far reaching this has gone. So we're starting to track all of those messages that all the partners and all the work they're doing, but something that we've realized through this is that it's raising a lot of awareness around who currently does not have a summer meal site. And so we wanted to have a discussion here right now on how does this group and the Blueprint in general want to respond to these questions we're getting from people who don't have a site in their community. And so making sure we have a consistent message and also making sure that we're linking them to other resources. So I'd like to open that up for discussion on how, how do we work together to kind of quickly identify how we can connect them to another food resource. So is that Is it a child adult care food program? Is it a food bank? How do we kind of respond? We have people who are really interested in trying to understand why there's not a site, what they can do, but is there any short-term messaging we can get them to kind of point them in the right direction while we work with them over the long term to potentially add a site next year?
So I can start, and just as a quick introduction, I'm Erin
Oh,
Ulrich. I'm the new, I'm the new implementation director for the Blueprint. So I'll be here regularly, and I'm on day 4, so I have everything figured out already. But I do think, as we think about the Blueprint's role, making suggestions that may cost money. So bring those to us, bring those proposals. I think I'm in the process of kind of fleshing out what the budget for next year looks like, which starts on July 1. So if there are things where you guys are saying, well, yes, we can absolutely connect them with resources, and I think this is a great group to be able to think through that. What are the resources available in those communities? Also, if there are gaps and there are things that need small amounts of funds, to be able to have something for the summer for kiddos and communities, so we don't have to wait for a year. Let us know. I think we're looking for projects like that we can be able to kind of support gap filling in that way. So.
Sorry to.
We've gotten a few requests already from locations that don't qualify, so they can't host a summer meal site, but like librarians or religious leaders have identified that they know there's a need. I mean, my process through that right now is to connect them to our hotline to see if families could enroll in SNAP, or to connect them to the closest food pantries that might be able to have a partnership and deliver food that families could take home, or that kids could have snacks at that site throughout the summer. But I don't have like a formal structure of how we do that. We just check in our pantry maps to see what's closest, and then make those connections and try and support however we can. But I would say there's been maybe 4 locations this year that don't qualify.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've gotten probably 5 or 6 emails this week, because the work group, so that email went to all work group members, and then they're sending them out to their network. And so it is just, I feel really old when I say this. It feels like it really went viral. Like I just keep getting all of these emails of people who are really getting the word out. But yeah, I mean, I was surprised to see how many people now have reached out, like, why don't we have anything?
This is Carolyn. Does anyone have the capacity to do closed enrolled sites for those places who have reached out but they're not area eligible?
So I think, Ashley, if you're on the phone, I think at this point, though, that if it was a new sponsor, they're past the deadline of doing it for this year. Mm-hmm. So we could certainly start working with them about what we could do next year. So people can sign up to be a site under an existing sponsor throughout the summer. But a lot of times that sponsor, and I know there's folks in the group that are sponsors, that deadline for them to accept sites was months ago. So I don't know how much of a viable option is for people to add a program through the summer meal program this year.
Yeah, Carrie, this is Ashley. I was going to add that new sites can be added throughout the summer, but as you mentioned, sponsors oftentimes have application deadlines, or they've met capacity based on their monitoring plans. So I think we could still connect them to the closest sponsor in their area to see if that's an option for this year. And if not for this year, definitely looking at what we can do for next year to add these sites.
This is Danielle. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Kevin's messing with my AV. Ashley, that's exactly what I was wondering is, can you guys just connect us when you get those requests? Can you connect them to, the nearest school food authority sponsor and maybe the nearest community sponsor, when we were broken out in our chats, Lauren told us that the Food Bank for Larimer County will have 11 mobile sites this summer. And, you know, we've struggled to find locations for the Windsor and Johnstown programs because they don't qualify. They're not area eligible. And we've worked out a system where they can come to us on a field trip. So they'll come over to Greeley to, you know, go to the petting zoo or something, and then stop into one of our sites and have lunch. And I wonder how, you know, with sites like that, Lauren and I can partner to come up with a dozen different locations throughout the summer where these kids, it's not every day, it's not 4 days a week or 5 days a week, but it's something. If we can partner sort of in our relative geography to figure out a few spots just for this summer, and maybe then help that along for next summer to be a little more cohesive.
Yeah,
that's great.
A couple of things I was going to say from the food bank perspective too. I think, sorry, this is Lauren. If you connect them to the nearest food bank as well, either food banks or our partner agencies are running, a number of partner agencies are running summer backpack programs as well, where they could at least get weekend food take home from that partner. So that could be another option. And then also we are always in the process of developing new agency partnerships that might run their own snack programs for children or that type of thing. And so we can try to connect with them as well, the agencies that are expressing interest or partner groups that are expressing interest, and see if there's a solution we can work out that's not necessarily an SFSP official solution, but one that might still provide some food to children.
Does anyone have suggestions for Southwest Colorado? Yeah, because those are some of the areas like Fresno. Yeah. I don't even know how far away. Probably Pueblo.
Yeah, I mean, I like
the well, and like a little further.
North Main Coast, Dolores.
Yeah.
How do you rank that? In terms of what distribution or some
Is-
sites?
Is Lindsay from Hunger Free in the room? Or Taylor? Is anybody from Hunger Free in the room?
Yeah, it's Taylor talking.
Hey, Taylor.
I don't know if you can see.
I can't. You're tiny on my little. You're itty bitty. So can we identify some of the pantry network? I know there are just so few in that area, but would it be possible to connect with Lindsay and see if we can identify some of those partner pantries and see what we could do to just connect groups?
Yeah, so that's what we do now in terms of just like emergency food and, you know, potential of like backpacks or snacks home, but it's definitely not filling the full gap of, you know, breakfast, lunch throughout the summer.
So how do we figure that piece out? Because, you know, all of us have been on these email strings, right, where like the board of county director is interested, but there was nothing there. And we know there's, what, 300 some kids who are on SNAP and eligible. You know, is the answer, I think you said two things, backpack programs and then even food boxes that can somehow get there probably from the major food banks distributed out there. Has that been done, you know, before? And, you know, how is it possible to be able to think through that and get something moving in June, even if it's mid-June?
Yeah, I think, I mean, yeah, we can get connected to those pantries and see what they can set up and what their capacity is. I think there's like strong community advocates in some of those areas that are willing to support an initiative like that. Yeah.
And it's some elected officials, which is just amazing.
Yeah.
You know? And then we put them on the list for next year. I get through this year.
Would it be appropriate, I know I like to have a lot of tracking, but like if we had a Google Doc and started putting some of these communities that are asking where there's resources so that everyone in this group can see that? I'm trying to think of how to organize all these different pieces so that we can respond. But
so is the biggest problem is distance? They just can't get to the site, or it's in another county, their county doesn't have one? Is that
Or, I mean, there's like, you know, not a, like that, they're not eligible to have a site, but they're still hunger.
Right,
Like
but
those
kids
bubbles.
can go to any site, right?
Sure, but yeah, they're
So it's
too
just-
far away,
yeah.
yeah, to a place where there is one, where people, yeah.
And is it most of the outlying areas, not the big metro areas?
In my experience, Carrie, yeah. I was gonna pull up, we have I can find it later, we have a map that we just created, that shows where the summer meal sites are, and you can, it's a great visual.
It's interesting, we have like these great maps on like food deserts, but if you're really interested, we gotta identify the summer meal desert.
Yeah.
And then overlay how many kids are there.
Yeah, because those areas are just so hard to transport anywhere else.
Let me just send it to you.
Yeah, maybe you guys said some states are doing like FedEx delivery and.
Actually, this is Naomi. Remember that USDA press release we shared from maybe a few years ago where California, I don't know if the whole state, but part of the state might have worked with FedEx or UPS to transport food?
Yes, that was something that USDA had promoted as a best practice. So I know that it has worked in other states, specifically, like you said, in California. I think the problem is still finding a sponsor that is able to oversee the sites in those areas.
So I'm lost on the question, how do we find those potential sponsor sites in the Southwest, is that the question? Or other areas?
But I think in the long term, that's it, but the short term is there anything we could do this summer to get more food distributed and accessible to kiddos where there's nothing?
So what other programs are
So I know the San Juan.
Other programs or food banks or just getting more commodities and then getting them out. And without a reimbursement stream from the feds, really. Is that something we can take on, or is that a priority of this group?
I mean, our TSAP program has a website that you can go to find the sites in your area. You just put in the zip code and see if there's a TSAP agency invited. That's another resource that maybe a program that you can use already for a food box.
And would they need just then more funding for food boxes or backpacks specifically for kids?
I think it's done by who comes in to take the box. So the more people who come, the more funding that county gets for, because it's food, it's USDA food. So it's actual food getting there. So anyone who's eligible for TFAP, which is the Emergency Food Program, can go in and show their eligibility and get a food box. And they're open, most counties have at least one distribution per month. Some of them have one per week. But that's just a resource that you can give out, you know, on your resource pages, to get that information to the people who are asking for food for the kids. Because if they're SNAP eligible, I believe they're also TSAP eligible.
Kevin, so Gabby just sent you an email of this map.
Okay.
It'll be really helpful, I think, for conversation. So we had a MPH grad student do some maps for us. He just sent them to us, so we're just reviewing them. But this is what the summer food service program participation looks like from last year.
Oh, that's last year.
So I know the San Juan BOCES has been funded, right, for healthy schools. They seem like they would be a good resource for connection down there. And then,
County Health Network as well out of Telluride, so we've done
Okay.
job work. We do work generally, it depends on the areas you're looking at, but, we have worked with them that's actually out to, Narita and stuff like that as well, so. Those are these contacts. I was talking to Jennifer as well, Kyle Sargent with the Colorado Health Foundation, I don't know if I know everybody. We work in 4 regions as well, so if there's opportunities to share maps or resources or requests, I can forward that out to our teams who work in those areas and find any kind of connections. It's probably more of a shotgun approach than some of these other resources, but I'm happy to take that as well. Jennifer, you mentioned Werfeno, and I know we're considering a grant to Early Childhood Council there. We do work with the school district. CU Foundation, we've got some work on teen and young adult resiliency, so there may be partners to talk about whether they can or not deliver food currently is a different question, but contact, I'm happy to take that back to our team.
And I think a lot of the
Hey,
data
Carrie.
will really help you.
This is Ashley. I was just curious on the map. I know you just said Cameron gave these to you, but are these all sites, or is this, because up at the top it says at least one school participates, so is this only looking at SFAs?
That's a good question. I would have to look. But that could be the case if that says that right there. Does it seem off to you?
On first glance it does, but
Okay.
we can chat about it later too.
Carrie, I think I can confirm that, like, I can see where Greeley is in there. I know the Weld Food Bank is operating programs in other parts of Weld County that aren't lit up, that aren't core.
We're having a hard time hearing you, Danielle. Is it yours or us?
Kevin, why are you messing with me? I can tell from looking at the map that where Greeley is, but I know for a fact that the Weld Food Bank is operating sites outside of Greeley in Weld County that are not identified on this map. So I think
Okay.
Ashley might, I mean, it's a safe assumption, at least in just identifying Weld County anyway, that it's just Greeley that's showing up here.
Okay. So okay. Thank you for
Yeah.
pointing that out. So it's just school district. Does anyone else have any, what are some things I think that from this conversation that we can do now?
We'll probably come up with a resource page. If you can get a hold of food banks to find out the backpack program. I mean, we just need to know what other programs are running
Right.
in those areas the kids can get to.
And who has all that? Do you guys have all that information?
Like our pantry map?
Yeah, that have backpack programs and that too?
We try to keep it as updated as possible.
Yeah.
Backpack programs change locations a lot, like where they're serving, so it may be 6 months data, full data, but we do try and keep it as updated as possible. So, yeah, I mean, people could, just call in and we can tell you the 4 closest pantries to that site and all of their contact info. And then there's the federally run programs too, so you guys are doing SNAP enrollment and then Kids Under 5, WIC enrollment, TCFP sites and TPAP sites.
So maybe that's part of the communication plan, like back to the ones that are not covered, and then maybe even asking them. This is helpful. So if some of the pantries that are in these communities don't run a backpack program, but there's an identified need and we want to do it, do you know how much it would, like, what would be the way that we would approach those pantries and provide funding for them to do a backpack program for kids in this summer? Would that be possible? Would it be a way for you to be able to, like, quantify a partnership with them? You know, what that could look like, what the distribution could look like?
Yeah, we haven't done that, so I'm not sure. Lindsay may have a better idea. She works more closely with the pantries with sort of funding or support they would need. So she might be able to answer that better. But we can touch base on that. Yeah.
I think, we may have to think really just very broadly about what we can kind of get out there to those blue ones. The blue ones that are asking for gold.
So it sounds like our messaging we can refer to the hotline. We can include a CBE contact to help them see if it's a good option to start a program next year, how they get that running, who they can partner with. And then we can set something up where we're tracking this so everyone can see who is reaching out and see if there's way, if everyone wants to take a look and see if anyone has any further background information on these communities.
I'm happy to send that, whatever you guys come up with, out through the other work groups as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of work group members on all the other goal groups, to have them kind of add resources as they're aware of those as well.
Great.
You know, I'm feeling a little bit like, as far as long-term goals, to add sponsors and sites in those underserved or unserved areas, I'm feeling a little bit like I would want to understand more the reason why they don't have a site, because I feel like there's a few possibilities that we've discussed, and some of them are, first of all, if they're not area eligible, you know, that's one thing, but if they're just, you know, if it's just a rural area and we're having an issue getting kids to a specific site, but yet they would be eligible, and we could focus on transportation, and are we talking transportation of food versus transportation of kids? I think that for the long-term goals, I would definitely want to understand a little bit more why, and it would probably end up being, you know, an area by area type situation to see, which could be time-consuming, a lot of work to do, but I think it would be helpful as well, instead of just kind of doing a blanket, you know, utilizing a blanket idea as a potential solution when it could be a different circumstance in each area. Yeah, because I mean, there's certainly things that we could kind of go on, and including our messaging and getting the word out, and what is it that we're explaining. I know Ashley does so much already with all of this, so this is nothing that she's, you know, not already doing, but we can certainly support her and enhance that work. Yeah. So we're going to put together, you said we're going to put together a Google Doc with locations without a site, but are still in need. Is that what you had said? Just to recap.
So the people that have been reaching out to us directly based on all this outreach.
Okay.
So those people who have contacted us this week that we want to get back with them and start this conversation. So that would be that. I think the long-term, and part of our needs assessment, and our needs assessment's really clear that there's a lot going on at the local level, that there's a lot more to dive into. Like you said, that there's a lot of factors on why. So I think once we have a lot of that data too, we can start using it and figuring out how we dive in and where we go with it.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Okay, great. Does anyone have anything else before we move on to the next update? And so I also wanted to thank Erin for working with the folks over at CDPHE, the OPPI Office of Planning and Partnership.
Well, it was improvement, or they just changed the name.
Oh, okay.
They're great.
Yes, they put forth a request to have a governor's proclamation for Summer Meals Month, so Summer Meals for Kids and Teens Awareness Month, and it looks like it is going to be July. I did hear that it might be June, so I should know in the next couple of days. I think the timing was July when the request went in, but we were trying to get it to June. So more to come on that. So that's exciting. And thank you for doing that. Is there anything else that we're missing as far as summer meal outreach? Lily has started putting all of the emails that we've been receiving and all the things that all the partners and work group members are doing in that tracking sheet that we developed a couple months ago. So you'll be able to see on there who's doing what, and then hopefully it'll help you identify if there's some gaps, if there's some people that we are missing that we haven't reached out to. Is there anything else that we can do in the near term to support summer meals this year? anyone's been thinking about? Or want to share? Okay.
Well, I do want to say, like Erin's idea of, because there are some different folks who aren't in the room from different organizations in Workgroup 4, who have different networks, and it might have hit their radar screen, but bringing it back up again around, so I know like the Family Resource Center Association sent this out, and they're doing a big push on this, which is great with their 30 folks across the state, but there might be other folks where the email might not have hit their radar screen, where we could again elevate it up and get it, so it needs to go out with the request, and then July 5th or something.
Yeah.
So kind of just keeping like, everyone moving on this throughout the summer across partnerships.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, like, the early childhood space is pretty organized, so putting something out through some of those groups to early childhood providers, that may not be involved in CCFP, but could do field trip types of activities, like Danielle just mentioned, where they can take their kids. I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. It's tight. So there could be some opportunity thinking about the younger age bracket of that group.
I know, FRCA, we did have a meeting with Mary Alice Cohen from Office for Early Childhood, and we're in talks with her about, like, next steps for, doing outreach or seeing how, like, what type of partnership that will look like for them to be a part of this work group. So it is on their radar. We just have to meet with Mark, our executive director, to kind of, like, flesh out what those next steps are, but that is, like, in the works, so they're being brought into the conversation. We just don't know, where that'll fall yet, but we'll definitely update once we have a better understanding of that.
The other group would be the healthy school coordinators, the wellness coordinators across the state, making sure that they get this out before school ends. So I could tie that in with RMC, send it to them, and make sure that it goes out to all the wellness coordinators, or do it myself. So,
Yeah, that would be great. Is that what you did with the charter school?
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah, separate kind of thing, but yeah, this would be, about 50 coordinators, I think. And any, like, youth coalitions, that would be good to send out.
And again, I think Ashley already knows all this, and some of you probably do too, but I mean, now that we're pretty much done conducting outreach for recruiting sponsors and, we can still, like you said, Ashley, get sites on board. But we're done conducting that message for sponsors. Now we're really conducting a message for getting families to the sites. And so, when we're looking at that, we want to take a little different approach and really make this program, the message really needs to be appealable to the families and making it a fun thing. Of course, in some areas that's not the case, but in other areas that's a good approach. And so I'm thinking about partnering for folks to do activities at some of the existing sites, do some fun things and draw in more kids and attract attention, to the sites. And so maybe that's an area that we could think about too. It's not just, not just sending out a message, but also making the site more fun, fun and word of mouth will get out, thing and sort of thing. So I don't know if anybody has any ideas for how to enhance maybe some of the activities or some of the programming if they're, at some of the existing sites.
I don't think anyone from Aurora is here, but the gal at Aurora, I think she works for the rec centers that does summer programs. I think they do a lot of activities, so that might be a good person to touch base with. I don't know how it all works, but I know they kind of set up, different activities to draw the kids in, so.
Yeah.
Ashley, are you still there?
Yep.
I know there are some really creative things people have done with that partnerships. I remember you mentioning partnering with universities or AmeriCorps. I'm trying to think of all the different partnerships of people providing activities. YMCA. Oh yeah, Boys and Girls Club. Yeah. Library.
Yeah, there's been a lot of really unique partnerships. I think it depends on the area and the type of site, but also partnering with Parks and Rec has been really successful. And then I know that a smaller sponsor in Rifle, for example, just really worked with a lot of different businesses and community organizations in their town. And so they had people from the Humane Society, they had the firefighters, police officers, so any of those city champions as well.
I know in our needs assessment, that was one of the top findings of what is most effective in increasing participation, which isn't too surprising. but
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
having.
It doesn't have to be like every day either, you know, it could be, you know, actually like you're saying the, fire department, you know, they can come and just do, one event, you know, of some sort, or, it doesn't have to be, I don't know what we wanna call it, an event, but, you know, one activity at some point during the summer, even if it's not every day, just to draw that attention, kind of market the location.
Carolyn, does No Kid Hungry have a list of some of the activities that have been used in other states or that are creative that we could easily put out to folks? You're on mute if you're there.
Before my time, someone put together like a binder of low-cost fun stuff, so like basically a bucket of fun and what you can like solicit donations for. And so if there are sites that don't have the financial means or maybe don't have the community partners, like last summer I was at a site in Eagle and it was just like chalk and jump ropes and a few footballs and I was like sweating the whole time. So like kids can have a lot of fun with like pretty basic play things, and so we can like share that. I don't even know if we have an electronic. I've seen it like once. I will find it. I'll dig it out and I'll send it to you. Is there a way of knowing? I can't remember if we track in our system what activities are at the site. Is there a way of us knowing, Ashley, what sites might not have activities?
The system doesn't track activities really, it tracks what type of site, so we don't really have a good data set for that.
Yeah.
Jennifer, Carolyn, she's back at her desk.
Hey, sorry, I found a private room. I was at my cube and unsurprisingly, things were happening around me. Sorry, can you repeat the question? I know we're talking about activities at summer meal sites, but I wasn't sure exactly what you had asked me.
So wondering if No Kid Hungry has either best practices or even a list of kind of creative ideas for activities for summer meal sites?
I don't know if we have a single resource, but I will definitely chat with my colleagues about that and I can send it out right after the meeting. I know there's like free USDA resources, and even just like simple things like game buckets, like can just turn it into more of a play thing than just a meal. But yeah, I'll double check and send that out after.
That'd be great. I'm looking at the USDA list and it's, you know, it's a USDA list.
Yeah, I know. It's not exactly like the most fun or most plug and play thing for a, volunteer to just suddenly implement a, summer nutrition education program. So.
Yes. Thanks for checking into that.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So that might be a good option to look at, Taylor, and also maybe how much it costs. Yeah, because we could potentially get this as fun. Yeah.
I think we put forth the best ideas and see what we can make fit, right?
Yeah. Great discussion. With that, I think I'm just going to move along to our next slide, just a quick question for the group. We had some really great feedback from a member, Danielle, who suggested that maybe our June meeting, we take a field trip to a summer meal site. So I just wanted to gauge everyone's interest in doing something like that for June. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And
we do the meeting and then go?
I think that we could go and just meeting to go.
Yeah.
We could talk there.
Yeah, no, sure. Unless there's.
This is actually-
All over.
Or get the fun is fun.
I get the fun. That's an awesome idea.
I think we should take a bus and then you can.
I-
a bus.
Yeah.
Wait.
Can we charter?
Sure.
Or someone can load us.
That's a great use of funding, isn't it?
So with that,
So
is
this-
there anyone, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, this is Ashley, that I think this is fantastic. I'm wondering if there's a way to break it out so not everyone is visiting the same site. I know that sometimes that can be overwhelming when just our staff is out there and there's, 5 adults at a site. So just throwing it out there, if there's a way to do a couple different sites on the same day.
Yeah, we'll scare all kids away. Yeah,
Volunteer are a couple sites in Fort Collins, and I think our next meeting is on a Thursday as well, right? We have 2 mobile home parks on Thursdays. If you guys wanted to visit like more of a mobile site that's open, where I think we could have adults a bit a ways from where the meal service is actually taking part as well, so that it doesn't feel so overwhelming. And we'll be at 2 different sites for half an hour each, and so we could split the group and go half to one site and half to the other.
okay. Yeah, is there,
Up here, no offense, there no worries if not. Won't be offended.
I know that probably nobody wants to come all the way out to Greeley. So, but if we want to do Northern Colorado, you guys should know that I'd be happy to have. We can go to Fort Collins if you want to see an SFA operating. We could pop over here, or I could reach out to Craig Schneider and see if he'd be willing to open up one of their. I think they're operating at least 3 schools for partial times this summer.
okay, I know, Bank of the Rockies, and I know Erica's not on the call, I don't think today, but Jeff, so maybe if anyone's interested in hosting, you could just email me and then we can coordinate a couple sites and see if that works for everyone. Yeah, okay. Cool, thank you. Okay, so then we'll just go into our bigger conversation around marketing.
So, Carrie and I have been kind of talking about a couple of things. So, as a group, we knew that putting out some summer meals, food promotion was a really great idea, and it was really timely. And then when we looked at, clearly with the long-term planning that has been identified here and TDE's, implementation plan, summer meals for 2020 is definitely high on their list. But we have this interim period where we have some information from their evaluators around school meals, and we have these couple of months, right, where that could be a priority, where we think through how do we promote summer meals, school meals. And the interesting piece, so we wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the meal application, how we might support schools and families in understanding the program. And the evaluators really talked about marketing and stigma reduction as really key resources that would help them improve participation, which is really important for kiddos, for the schools, for the the fiscal sustainability of the school programs and for the state programs. So we wanted to kind of talk about what might we be able to do in the June, July, kind of leading up to August to support school districts and families in really understanding and engaging in that project, or in that program. And so we really wanted to kind of put forth that might be what we could focus on in the next a couple of meetings. I think we have a great idea from, what we've just done on summer meals and a great response, that when we're able to put out good messages to the right people, we can actually get support on this. So part of that is what we might be able to do in the near term. But we wanted to also have Taylor talk to us before we kind of go into a larger discussion about this, about what is already occurring in this, and then we can kind of just talk about what might we bring together with our myriad resources to help support both CDE and Hunger Free and just schools across the state.
Thanks. Yeah, so Hunger Free has been working with CDE, and this has sort of come about from what we were talking about earlier, summer meal sites, places that were interested in hosting a site. And when they would talk with me about area eligibility, saying like, there's no way my community doesn't qualify. Like, we definitely should be hitting that 50% mark. But the free and reduced price in eligibility they don't feel accurately reflects the reality of their community. And so I had people reaching out really across the state asking for outreach materials, like how can I promote to my families to fill out the free and reduced lunch application. Like, they're pretty convinced that families maybe don't know about it, or it really varies depending on districts we're finding what sort of outreach is happening. So like Denver is a great example of a lot of proactive outreach for families to know about the application, to be getting a lot of information, to be getting information in multiple methods, but other districts don't really have maybe the infrastructure or the ability to do that. And so to figure out what might be most helpful for schools, we've worked on a survey, we being CDE and Hunger Free Colorado, to learn from SFAs what outreach and promotion methods they're currently implementing and how effective those are, and then where they could see help from support from the community. So how can community-based organizations, like we screen for hunger and refer people to SNAP, like how can we be doing something similar to make sure families are getting connected to the free and reduced lunch application? Free and reduced price meals, working real hard to kick the free and reduced lunch habit. And so we're looking at like a statewide campaign. We are very much looking for feedback and partnership on this, so anyone who wants to be involved, please let me know. But looking to ask some of our statewide partners, some local partners that we work with, to be doing more active outreach about this program to their families. So whether that be libraries, medical centers that we work with, WIC, like all of those sorts of locations. And then we're looking at it from like a two-pronged approach of training partners, so like training a librarian on how you fill out a free and reduced price meal application because they may not be familiar with it, and then they could help a family through the application if they need it. And then also the piece to parents. So a lot of times I find that parents may not know that there's a lot of implications that come with the application that are beyond just a meal. So yes, if you fill out this application, you might get a free, or now also free, yay for the coverage expansion, free meal, but you also help your community get Title I funding. Your community could be eligible for all different programs like summer meals and after school snacks and suppers, like all of these other things that really support your community. Like, it's a service to your community if you're filling out this application, and trying to really help families know the impact of this application outside of just a meal. So we'll be doing some content development over the summer, and then like webinars and outreach materials for partners, and then just sort of blasts and events to engage families through October. I mean, continuously, but that October 1 count, we're really aiming for communities to have seen an increase in their free and reduced price meal participation at that point.
Hi, this is Carolyn. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, this is Carolyn on the phone, and I believe it was in Minnesota. I would have to double check. That a district just changed to calling it a educational benefit form rather than a meal benefit form, so that whether parents didn't think they qualified for meal benefits or didn't want meal benefits, that they saw that it was something more broad than just that. I'd also have to double check if they saw an increase or what other tactics they tried. But I'm happy to also follow up on that piece as well. But I think that's a great idea.
What was it called again? An educational benefit?
Yeah.
So, I just feel like we're a little bit behind the curve for fall, honestly. I think one of the challenges is we keep talking about reducing stigma, but we keep talking about selling the benefits of free. And I feel like we just have to get away from that. If we're gonna attract everybody to the program, we need to somehow just elevate the food itself so that we can elevate the people who choose it, who rely upon it. And I think what we really need is a global campaign that's out a year, and we start thinking about a statewide campaign that involves TV spots, promotion around food, why this food is great. We've got so many heavy investments that have been made here in Colorado in school food. We have so much good that we can promote about food. And we can get away from the free, reduce, the application message, and get more people consuming it, and we can reduce the stigma. But I think we can do some stopgap things between now and the fall. But what we really need are a couple $1 million to do some big statewide campaigns where we can highlight the farmers who are selling produce into the program. We can highlight the food service directors who are doing amazing work and show off some of the great values in their food program. And I think that's where we have to go. If we're going to reduce stigma, we've got to go to the value of the program and the people who are producing it, making it happen, and get away from the free component. But that's not a program I think we can do this summer. I think we need a long-term strategy to make that happen. So, and I think also for summer meal sites, what I'd like us to do is think about working towards next year and getting really strategic and systematic in how we can build it up for next year, but continue to try to plug the dam where we can for this year.
Yeah, that's exactly the approach, is what can we do in the near term while we do the long-term planning?
Yeah.
And it is a stopgap, but I think, some of the things that Taylor's doing and some of the information that CDE's already received from schools will at least help us do, something minimal, but it could boost enrollment, but it will also inform what you're talking about, like the next phase. And I would love to hear about Denver's work, and kind of we're talking about what's already working on this, and Carolyn's chimed in about Minnesota, but would you be willing to talk about your approach?
Yes, we can absolutely talk about it. What I was thinking, I like your suggestion that maybe in June would be when we start looking at that, and maybe in preparation. We worked with Live Well and the Healthy People Project for the last 2 years, and we had a CHF grant. So Rainey actually submitted kind of a final summary that really gives a longer list of what we did together, what worked and what didn't. I would say, and so I'm happy to share that out with the team. I could send it to Kevin, and then we can all look at it, and then I think rather than kind of just talking about things, we could just maybe go directly to, like, if this is what's working, how do we do this more systemically? What I would share, and I'd be interested in knowing other parts of the state, we did focus groups at the very beginning of this project about 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago. And what we found, we segmented it by paid families, Spanish-speaking FRL families, and English-speaking FRL families. Happy to share that with you as well. They were focus groups. And what we found is that our paid families were most aware of the changes that had occurred in our school food authority and still did not value it. So our paid families, we've had a steady market rate participation rate of 10% over the last 5 years, not gone up. And so demographics in Denver go up. I think Rainey's point is we have to be the SFA for all families is really critical, because we're going to drop our participation rate so much that we're going to have to scale back what we've done. Our Spanish-speaking FRL families were least aware of the changes that occurred and most critical. So they really had a perception that we were an old-time SFA serving chicken nuggets and pizza and very unhealthy. And our consumer who was most happy with us were our English-speaking FRL. And what's interesting is that our FRL participation rate has dropped over the last 5 years. So that's been a real conundrum for us, that families who qualify for free or reduced are not taking those meals. And particularly our Spanish-speaking families just did so that there was a health benefit to them. And so then we found kind of what were some things that resonate. Again, I'm happy to show this all to Kevin. You can see our focus group evaluation. We shared it with our kitchen workers, and then working with Liberal and Rainey, we really developed our marketing plan around it. Where we found the biggest buck, bang for a buck, I would say, is doing case testing initiatives. And that worked for all schools. And whether it's paid families in higher paid school or higher overall schools, being able to do case testing of new products really started to change the perception at the elementary level. Secondary is still a challenge for us, but I'd be really interested in what other school districts are doing, because I don't know, it's just the stigma, I think that's part of it, but there's also a sense that the food is great, and yet I could take you to one of our high upper schools and have 22 choices a day in that school. My kids never got 22 choices a day for their sack lunch, and so how do you really teach that out? And then there's the whole social component for high school kids, that no matter what you give them, they just want to get the heck out of campus. But so I think it'd be helpful to share that information with this team, but then rather than just kind of talking about it, to really start doing the reading plan, which is what is our short-term and long-term plan based on. And Denver's fortunate because we have economies of scale. We're also very different challenge, and so being able to maybe look like at a rural case study as well as what we were able to do in Denver. So I think what we can do in Denver metro area is but it's really the rural schools that it's a challenge.
Definitely, and when I found some of these rural areas, they, school nutrition directors, they are just stretched beyond. So then, is there a way to utilize some of the marketing and information, even just again the short term, to get to nonprofit partners and directly to families, because they don't have the capacity to have, do some of these things. But it is multi-layered.
And I would just say that the things that we did, we designed them, particularly with the CHF grant, to be more of a plug and play so that other school districts wouldn't have to kind of start from scratch and do that. I think that there definitely is a component of one knowing the audience, and maybe the territory is slightly different, but I think that being able to utilize the consultants that we have, you can take some of this and like do it on your own, but some of this you really just need to go out and do kind of legwork and foundational work, and I think that's where working with Liberal and Rainey. We couldn't have just done this working with a marketing advertising firm. But happy to share all of that. This is proprietary or I think definitely it can help other kids access that. But I think really we started with the premise that Rainey just stated, which is we needed to elevate food for all of our students and not just for our lunch.
That sounds great, and I can't wait to read it. Did that drive sort of your plan to then promote and educate, and would you be willing to kind of share those materials that were developed based on that feedback? I think, okay, that would be really great, because I think
But really, the bottom line with all this is that if we did deliver a higher quality of food and elevate the kind of food that we were serving, it matters how much we were working. And we would lose, like, so we have this mac and cheese product, and it's really popular with our kids. If you serve burnt mac and cheese to kids, you just lost the customer. So kind of that quality and promise. And if we said on the menu that we were going to serve mac and cheese and we didn't do it, lost the customer. So you can market the heck out of all this, but if you didn't deliver on the basic things that we need to do. And in fact, our participation rates are continuing to decline. So even with all this terrific heroic work that was done at the kitchen level, we lost one.
Can I ask you one more question? So, what do you see with direct serve families? So you're getting, the SNAP rate into the school lunch. Are they participating?
So we can't segment it out by that. So I can just segment it by, at the school level, how many free kids are participating, reduced kids, and paid kids. But we can't look at, of those free and reduced kids, how many were direct served.
So I'm always curious as to whether, making it really easy, and the families know that this is the way they're to receive food. That just, so that would be really interesting, and maybe look at it in the future. But short term, it's like, how do we get this marketing information out in a stopgap?
Yeah.
Hey, Teresa.
Everybody.
Thanks, Kevin.
Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say that people on the phone are having a little hard time hearing everyone, so with the mics in the ceiling, could we just try and speak up a little bit louder?
It's like you're speaking to God. Teresa, I don't want to put you on the spot, so you and I can talk about this another time, but I just want to put it out there. How do we get you, specifically you, and the experience at DPS more involved in CSNA and scaling exactly what you just told us and what Rainey has been doing, scaling it to a level that is accessible for more school nutrition programs?
Well, I think you have to hire Rainey as well. Because we were really just their customer and I was really the liaison, but they came up with the good ideas and I really do think I think it's an and both. It's what Rainey suggested, that there needs to be a much more robust campaign that addresses this statewide, because all the challenges we have in Denver are the same that are going on, whether it's rural or not. We just have a little bit more money. But I think they're probably similar challenges. And I think how to address that and like even the things that Taylor was talking about to increase the number of meal applications. This is not, it's basic blocking and tackling. It's not like rocket science. And I think part of it is just having the assistance of a consultant to do this work, and then have it supported by a much more robust campaign that school meals are very different than they were even 10 years ago. And local produce, which we're all trying to hustle, is something that we can elevate in a way that people just are not aware of. And that would cut across rural and urban and big and small. But I really do, I mean, again, happy to share all this information, but I think it would be hard for a school district to just take it and say, okay, we're going to just copy everything that Denver did, because there really was a lot that was done through Rainey and with Livewell to help coach our team how to do this work.
And I can't disagree with that. And Rainey and I have had some of these conversations already. But now I'm representing, now I have my CSNA hat on because I know Erica couldn't be with us today. So from a Colorado School Nutrition Association perspective, the more evidence-based work you can bring to that association to help us as school nutrition professionals understand what you are saying. The scary, sad reality is that you would not be speaking to the choir. There are too many School Nutrition Association professionals that do still believe that this is a program that needs to be solely marketed towards students who are living in poverty. And as we shift our thinking to be about school meals, the idea that we can provide a healthy, fresh, nutritious meal to any student in our population, not just those who qualify. That's a shift in thinking. And I think that your success at DPS has to be represented at some level more consistently in CSNA to get those close to 1,000 school nutrition professionals in the state of Colorado on board with what you just said. And Rainey, I don't know if you're coming to summer conference, but if you're not, let's talk about how we can get you there.
Can I go? Yeah, you go ahead. Thank you. She's my dear friend. She lets me get in front of her. So a couple things. I still think we need a global statewide campaign. Our school professionals do not have the budgets to do this. We had the opportunity to do this great project for DPS, but my vision for the future is a statewide campaign that brings in all this. But the other piece is we had developed a proposal that Dan Sharp was ready to run with to do a very robust secondary version of the DPS campaign that had some really strong evaluation components. And Kyle, I hope you're listening to this. And that was not an opportunity that was going to be funded by the CHF at this time, which was a disappointment, because the idea of that was if we could do one more with all the evaluation components, then we could reduce the cost. We could do a very robust one with all the strong evaluation pieces to determine its effectiveness, and then bring the cost down to a rate that we think more food service directors could participate in a smaller customization amount. So we need another robust one to test it. But then thereafter, I think we can get down to more of a grassroots level that food service directors could take that product and customize it to fit their needs. So, but we need some investment up front to get there. That's my thought. And we're going to be a CSNA.
So Danielle, this is Gabby. You really segued into promoting a
a panel that I'm putting together for CSNA in which Teresa and Rainey will be on talking about this. They're not gonna go into kind of the history of the partnership because it was a long evolution with LiveWell, and we did a lot of things that kind of led to that point. But they're gonna talk about kind of the latest iteration of it. So definitely encourage all of your colleagues to attend the panel. It will be at 8 a.m. on a day that I can't remember. But yeah, it will include Rainey, Teresa, Ashley, and some other partners. DACFP, Megan will be there as well. So it should be a good panel. And I also want to say, just for the short term, because I know we kind of talk about long term and short term. Right now, as of right now, I think it should still be on there. LiveWell has a bunch of free resources in promoting school food to both parents, teachers, and students. And before I left, Rainey and I did a complete iteration cleanup of all of the tools and toolkits. So they're on there. You do have to put your name and email, but they are free online tools. And they're very basic. They might be something like a template to explain to parents what school food is and why it's important.
Yeah, so essentially back to school is a key time.
Right.
Every single food service instructor should be writing a letter to their community saying, hey, here's what's new this year. We've got 5 more student approved menu items. And by the way, we're now receiving produce from the local Valley Produce Hub or whatever. And so I help food service directors around the state think about what are their talking points and put that into a letter, which can be a newsletter article, press release, letter to parents and families. So minimally, every food service director should be able to highlight what's great about their program. And those resources are on LiveWell. And I could do a little simple TA in a webinar or something with our food service directors on how to do that. It's so simple. And sometimes they just need a little hand holding and
And we actually, I think there is, we did the video, there is a webinar on there that walks you through using some of them. But, the point is that for short term, there's a lot of free templates. They're in Word, so you can plug in your school district. So feel free to use those and share those. I don't know how long they'll be on there. I assume they'll be on there forever, but take them while they're hot. Download them, use them. They were made for food service directors and SFAs, and they're still great. They've been refreshed. So,
is it easy to find on the website, or?
Yeah, you just go to the School Food Initiative. It's not quite there anymore, but you can kind of dig under School Food Initiative and then go to online resources, and you just have to type in your email. But I mean, it would be a waste to have people not plug and play those because they're there and ready.
Hey, Carrie.
I'm curious. I love that you're willing to share some of that focus group information. Has anyone else surveyed or done focus groups with parents? Because I know with our needs assessment, we didn't get that far into those different audiences, but is there any other parent feedback? Are you using parent feedback for this outreach campaign that Hunger Free is working on, that we can look, kind of look more holistically at some of feedback across the areas of the state?
Yeah, we were just looking at some of the responses from the statewide assessment. We were looking at the responses from the statewide assessment that the SFAs had filled out, and the top 3 challenges for increasing student participation. The first 2 aren't things that Hunger Free Colorado really works on, alternative options and timing, but the third one being that families are not filling out the meal application. So that's where we were coming from.
Oh, I mean, have you talked to the parents?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The other thing I'm thinking about is they're talking to, and this isn't across all age groups, but there's a lot of effort going into the promotion of the new legislation around full day kindergarten. And are there opportunities to leverage the promotions that are going into full day kindergarten around healthy food and strong learning? And maybe having that conversation with the governor's office about how they're promoting this and having school meals be a part of that. Because I know one of my concerns as a parent, a DPS parent, that, you fill out the application for tuition assistance for kindergarten. And I wonder if even fewer parents are going to fill out school lunch applications. Because when you're getting money in your pocket, it's a little different than your kid getting fed at school. And so are we going to see a reduction in parents that are filling out that form because they're not having to release their income for tuition assistance for kindergarten?
Or how have you gotten any feedback, on some of those tools from parents? Or I'm just trying to think of like
I'm mainly in the support role to food service directors directly.
Yeah.
So not so much parents. But actually, all the kids might have some data too on parent input about school meals.
Yeah.
And the national PTA. Yeah. Lori Odom from the PTA.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes. Yes. I first of all, just on the topic of all-day kindergarten, we're all reeling. So like we had, a week before the end of school to figure out what does it look like for next year and how do we get this into the application for all-day kindergarten and make sure that we're getting in front of parents and they know that we have lunch and breakfast and snack and things. So that conversation is happening in every district across the state during this last week of school. So we're going to figure it out. But it does bring up a really good, to tie this back to what Rainey was saying, as the idea sort of starts to cement a little bit in my head, we do have a really good opportunity right now across the state because of the legislation that the governor has signed in the last few weeks to sort of ride on that wave a little bit, to do some marketing and some public communications about what's happening in our public schools. And I wonder, Carrie, if we have the opportunity to have more robust conversation at a next meeting or a later meeting about another proposal to go to the governing council about school meals and marketing school meals in a new and different way. Because I can say, again, speaking on behalf of the Colorado School Nutrition Association membership, we know participation is going down. We know that labor is, the cost of labor is going up for some of us exponentially. We know that food cost is not going down, and we are all hoping that the reimbursement continues to go up, but more so than we've seen it, because 3 cents every year is not going to keep pace with this. And so we're starting to understand how much jeopardy our programs are in, regardless of whether we're 30% free and reduced or we're 60% free and reduced. And so the idea of statewide marketing to talk about the benefit of healthy, nutritious meals in school that are not about kids living in poverty, this might be the time. This might really be the time to start creating a statewide effort, because we are the bulk. I realize that there aren't very many lunch ladies sitting in that room right now, but we are, 80% of the meals that kids eat in this state, and we got to figure out a way to get in front of some of those school nutrition directors and talk about changing the messaging for our programs, because it starts with us. It has to start with us. If we're not talking about feeding healthy meals in our schools, then Lord knows our teachers, our superintendents, our principals, and our parents aren't going to talk about it. So I think we need to have more conversation, Carrie, if you'd be willing within this work group, about what that marketing campaign looks like and what it entails. And Jennifer, I don't know if we could bring in somebody from Workgroup 1 to have that conversation with them present in the room to talk about how we capitalize on the sort of the wave of the population right now in the state, just on the heels of what the governor has signed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we do need to close the loop. One of the things that Workgroup 1 is talking about is, where do we start with a public education campaign? And it could be something like child hunger, right? So that would incorporate some of this. That hasn't yet been decided, but certainly, so we've got like two pieces that we need to figure out. One is, what can we do in the next 2 months to get some of this piece out? And then when we think about long-term planning, certainly, this needs to be sort of a longer term and very connected with Workgroup 1. And we have this window that Erin and you both brought up around the governor's announcement and all of this action that's been happening in a positive light. So you're trying to capitalize on that in the short term. I think we could bring Michelle in and Maddie and Carrie meet a lot, and just kind of see what we could do, again, short term, and then how might the needs of Workgroup 5 influence the readiness and maybe initial target population of Workgroup 1's activities, right?
Could we also model, and I don't know exactly the process Workgroup 1 has gone through, but similar to what we're talking about with the data, if maybe the next is July, kind of pull in all of the data, our needs assessment will be done and our report will be done, the data from DPS, any available information, potentially some case studies of what other, like Minnesota, like start looking at what the data is showing us, what's already been done, and then start figuring out from there.
Well, I mean, and I think certainly having maybe Carrie and a couple of other folks, and Maddie and Carolyn, to have more conversation around what you think we might be able to do based on national best practices in the near term, and then looking at the data and then figuring out what a campaign might look like over the near term. I mean, the near term and long term would be really valuable, and then that gets on the radar screen of Workgroup 1 for sure, which we're actually kind of breaking into that public will building piece, trying to figure out what the initial target population is, so that we're not just saying, okay, hunger is an issue, but we're saying that hunger is an issue and we can do this about it. So there's a target population and an ask to move the needle on something. So we can certainly have that conversation.
And Carrie, Gabby, and Rainey, before the school food initiative materials vaporize, can we get all of that on CDE's website, on OSN's homepage somehow?
Let me do some research around that.
Okay.
I'll get back to you.
Thank you.
It will all be on the hub, which is going to be a resource everybody can tap into. As far as I know, it's going to all be available, and it's currently available on the hub. But we just have so many investments that have been made in the state, into over 100 districts have been touched by Live Well Colorado, and Gabby's led a lot of that work with Live Well Colorado. And so if we don't leverage the investments that have been made and promote those, and then all of our farmers and the agricultural component and economic benefits to our state, all of that can be elevated with this kind of a campaign to promote school food. It's really getting at hunger, but we're coming at it from a lot of different angles.
So what types of successes have you seen?
Where's Teresa? Well, the campaign just really started, let's see, it began we launched it last fall at Back to School, all of our promotional materials. And do you want to speak to it, Teresa? I'd rather you are the details of it. She wants to know what successes have we seen with the campaign. Well, I will tell you with Live Well materials, in almost every case where we put out a press release or information to families, we've seen articles published in local newspapers. Just simple little things like that. It's really easy. I think when your tools were used was 16 or 18 times, we had something like 46 articles published around the state about food service directors and their program. So very simple, little bit of TA behind the tool, easy peasy. This was a much broader campaign that involved logo, branding, customization, posters, truck wraps. There's lots of pieces and parts to it to create more of a fast casual dining experience. So we wanted to change old facilities that are dated, need to be redone, but nobody has money for that, and move the people in there into kind of a spotlight, into their aprons and their colorful hair coverings and posters that tied into messaging that we knew families didn't know about, schools and kids didn't know about. So it's still early in the process to say what the successes were, but overwhelmingly, the kitchen managers and people who provide the food really liked the campaign, and it felt, I think, very supportive to them and to what they're doing. And we also made a campaign to elevate them and spotlight different people and their backgrounds and their ties to school food in their community. But as far as the other data that people really want.
So we really only collected data on the taste testing, and that was a challenge because we are on a 3-week menu cycle, and then it's like a 2-month menu cycle. So we did see, particularly first semester when we did almost 40 schools, that the taste testing definitely increased participation rates almost across the board. Second semester when we did it, we didn't always have the repeat of that particular entree item, that we were testing, so the results, what we found second semester is that the results weren't as robust as first semester, but we held even, which we felt was a win because participation dropped second semester anyway. You might have read we had a teacher strike, we had 2 snow days, so there were a few things that kind of happened that really, I think, interfered with the data. But the taste testing wasn't just the taste testing because Chef Chris from Livewell went in and worked with our team. So there was a whole operational efficiency that he was coaching in the kitchen, and our supervisors were participating. Because the idea was, if you do it in like one kitchen, then the supervisor would take it to his or her other schools and be able to replicate that. And some of our supervisors actually did do that. So the taste testing wasn't just that, but it was something that created a real customer focus for our kids of all ages. And it also touched our staff, which we think is a really important messaging point. And so where we had taste testing, we take it to the front office, we take it to the parents and the cafeteria, like anybody who'd eat it in the school, we were giving it away. And that was a really robust thing. We couldn't measure that. But what I can tell you, in the schools that really took our whole marketing toolkit, so all the things that Randy talked about, the cafeteria refresh, the branding, the posters, and really engaging all of our customers. So the principals, the support staff, facility maintenance, where our kitchens did that, we definitely saw at least a hold even on participation or even an increase. I can tell you across 150 kitchens, we probably had a bell curve of participation from people who just didn't want to do the extra work to people who just said, this is great, I'm going to do everything. And we saw kind of then the participation rates to match that. I don't know, Toby, would you have anything?
I would agree, yeah. And again, the data from our taste testing, we would set it up to where we would sample a menu item that was going to be served the next day to increase that transparency, but also just get them to come back and get something that's relevant, something that's going to be really readily accepted right away. So we were able to see direct impact, like she said. I think the total was like 1.8% increase, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking about 90,000 students, it's a pretty big number to hold even, and that was about an average across our district. So taste testing was definitely one of the shining points from Livewell. And again, to talk to Rainey's materials, our kitchen staffs have gone through a complete refresh with their again, from their uniforms, their colorful hair covers to managerial materials. I mean, Livewell created a lot of cool references and resources that I personally utilize with my managers to help them increase their efficiency, their leadership abilities, their marketing capabilities to create that buzz behind their menu items, and again, to reduce that stigma that school food is school food. And I hate calling it school food because it's food. It's not school food. It should be food. And so we're working towards rebranding and changing that mindset. But
the only caveat I want to put out there is we don't have a budget for marketing in our department. And so without the generous funding of the Colorado Health Foundation, we wouldn't have been able to do nearly the work we did working with Livewell and Healthy Food Project. So we're concerned about that because we felt like we got a lift over the last 2 years, and now that our grant is running out, we have to figure out how to make this sustainable and like what has the biggest impact and what can we continue to do. Some of this was branding. I think a lot of it was really at the kitchen manager level. It's more work, and you have to train your teams to do that. But I think there's some things that we're going to have to look at as a team and figure out how we continue to grow this, because we have to if we're going to survive.
And I'm wondering, sort of, as this conversation evolves and we think about, we've got June, July, would some of if we're able to kind of look at all the Livewell outreach, the outreach that y'all have done, so the national best practices, some of the rebranding, and would there be a way that with some blueprint resources like Michelle Ames, who's been supporting that would it make sense to try to do some of that and use the same mechanisms that we used to get the summer meals launched? So it's going out to all of our partners, the family resource centers that have, I mean, I don't know how many families you guys serve statewide, like way more than, we can imagine.
Yeah.
If that would be a mechanism that would work under these circumstances, at least to get some initial information out, certainly you guys can think about how you work with school nutrition directors, because I don't know that piece around what you might engage around the importance of it, but wondering if using that same mechanism would at least be a good first step in this interim piece while we figure out the long term, because we can make that happen quickly. The other piece is really long term. So I wonder about your thoughts on that. So that would reach families and nonprofits that serve families, and hopefully would elevate it as a education benefit or a health benefit, you know, those types of things. Is it worth it for us to try that, or do we
I
just
don't
not do
understand
it?
the question, actually.
Yeah.
I don't understand the question. You mean a mechanism like use a marketing tool that we've already been developed and adapt it to fit a way to promote summer meals?
Just any way to promote
summer meals.
So what we did is we, you know, as Carrie talked about, we invested in some yard signs, and then we sent out the summer meal flyers in English and Spanish to,
Sure.
you know, they're reaching probably thousands of people. And then there's going to be a social media push in June and July, and that was done relatively quickly and fairly easily.
Yeah.
And wondering if that is a process that we might want to take with this short of time period to just get the information out and to engage mostly families and community to help families, you know, get that application, or whether that's just not our time and energy.
I think that's great. I just think that a lot of these resources need TA with it. So I think that's what makes the resource valuable, because if you Google resource to increase participation or cafeteria, fun things to do, there's so much out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the combination of the resource and the hand-holding really, and bringing it together. And that's the powerful stuff, is that these districts are so varied, their needs are so unique. And so I would say that that would be great. I would just also say that you have to activate the resource. You have to activate the material. So if you gave those posters or signs, I can speak just on behalf of things like National School Lunch Program, it would really need some specific TA with it.
Yeah, and definitely this would be just consumer facing.
Right.
And social media, just to raise that awareness. Again, we won't know what that will bring, and certainly long term, like definitely TA and education and massive interest in accessing best practices and all the information you have, but still just kept wondering, do we want to try to raise awareness among families and family serving organizations about this in the short term, and that wouldn't require anything except raising awareness of this as a resource.
I think it's all we can do right at this moment, is just leverage the strengths of all of us and our partners to notify and communicate and share out. Whether or not they use them, we can't guarantee that, but if we can make it available to help them be successful. But there is some sort of, like, without TA, there's like a little loss of, you know, control over what actually happens to the resource. But definitely spread it as far and wide as we can.
And maybe purchase social media,
Yep, definitely.
You know, so just low hanging fruit, just test it out.
Absolutely.
So I do like that idea, Jennifer, and here's why. I pushed out our summer meal program to DPD. I made a contact in the Denver Police Department resource, and I'm like, oh, and we're, you know, it's free for anybody under 18. And she was like, oh, I didn't even know we did that. Is this available all over Denver? And like, so these are resource people in the community, and they had no idea that this was an option. And we've been doing summer meals in Denver for years. And so this year we just decided to do a big push to our community organizations. So rec centers, libraries, so working with the city, but DPD is a great resource to get elementary level.
Sure.
And she didn't even know. Right. And so, and I've been working with them during the school year, they didn't know that we would do universal breakfast. So just kind of that education piece, I think is helpful, but you have to, I think there's two things. One, you have to find the right people who can get this out, who have some credibility in the community. And the other is, they have to want to do it. So I'm struck by Danielle's comment that there probably are SFAs who feel that their mission is feeding poor children. We feel our mission is feeding all these kids. And so I think you have to find ready people who are willing to embrace food for children in your community.
And I think this group would be the one defines the message, and we get it, you know, made in a way that we want. And then I think it is right, like that email coming from you and you know, pretty proactive food service directors is going to have a huge impact, coming from the Blueprint office to some Blueprint partners, you know, some folks who have connections with the county to get those in the county. Like, you know, we were able to get the summer meal posters in county offices that use CCAP and such child support and all those places, but it does take these other connections and sort of that push from all of us, around, yeah, everybody can have a really great meal, so, yeah. Okay, so we've got some work to do.
That's why I was bringing in the idea of summer conference. And Gabby, I'm so excited that you're going to do this. I'm going to try to, rally some support for it. But just like Teresa said, if a school food service authority doesn't have the bandwidth for this, or the desire to do it, or their community isn't supportive, then there's no point in us pushing it. But making it accessible could have a significant impact on, 60 or 70 districts that know that they need to change the course of their programs. I do think that this is going to require a significant amount of hand-holding, though, Gabby. Like you said, I mean, I can go to these resources and I can download all of the templates, but, without having that personal experience that Teresa just related, I don't know how you fit this into your already stretched program.
Well, and I think that's what we're getting from our needs assessment and our approach, that going forward, there's going to be a lot of individualized TA, and it might not be marketing that district wants to focus on right away. I mean, there might be a host of other things like financial management, or, they don't have the capacity to get funds or write grants. So it'll be really working one-on-one to prioritize where they focus, but it's supported by all of this, and hopefully that everyone gets to a place where that might be a priority and it's available to them. But yeah, I agree.
And Carrie, maybe something we need to think about is asking the Blueprint for additional TA support for CDE, because the reality is you guys have the best relationship across the state with any of the districts. I mean, if anybody is going to be able to clearly communicate this message and do the hand-holding necessary, you need to clone Gabby like 5 times and fund that so that that resource is available and it's coming from you, because there is no single entity in the state that is trusted and relied upon by school nutrition directors more than CDE OSN.
And we are going to seek funding for the implementation phase of this project. So that will happen too, and hopefully we can clone people. Yeah.
So I know we're wrapping up. Is there, so I think these questions will be really great for all of us to be thinking about between now and June. And if there are research requests or information requests that you would like to be, synthesized and put together, feel free to, send them to Carrie and I, and we'll also look at national pieces so that we can have we can look at local and national and kind of have a really robust conversation around this piece at the next meeting with some of these resources. So if there's any research or information that you would like, or you have, if you want to send it to us, that would be great.
I have a question. So my colleague Megan is the one that works with school lunch, and she's not here today. She's on travel, so I can't really speak from that perspective, but I can speak from a parental perspective because my son's 8. But I'm just sitting here thinking that I get all those newsletters from JEPCO, and I don't remember seeing anything in any of them regarding the summer program or, anything. And maybe it was in one and I missed it. But maybe then if I missed it, it wasn't enough. It wasn't promoted enough, I guess that's what I'm trying to say, because I do read those. And then, and I know that's something that we try to kind of, push that, the schools should certainly be sharing information about summer meals. But then also, can summer meal sponsors share information about, promoting school lunch? Do they do that already? I don't know if they do. Maybe they're already doing it. But I mean, that's an approach too, to like share the love.
I have no idea. Yeah, that's a great idea.
That could be an idea too.
So that healthy schools coordinators should be, that I mentioned earlier, should be an avenue to the newsletter. They should have a pathway to get to that communications person to share information. So that's what I'll be sending out to and asking. Hopefully that gets into Jeffco. Yeah. So,
I'm gonna, I'll speak on behalf of Erica since she's not here and she works for Jeffco. I think as a school food authority, one of the challenges that we meet both with in-school meal service, so what we're gonna be doing in the fall, for example, and summer meals offering is having to follow the timeline of the academic achievement staff. And so just to clarify this issue, as we're trying to develop, okay, this is where we're going to be this summer, this is the meal we're going to offer, or even in the fall, this is what time your 8-year-old is going to eat lunch so that you can come visit your kid and have lunch with them. All of that is dictated by the academic achievement teams in the school district. So we really are a little bit at the mercy of the superintendents and the assistant superintendents and the building principals to be able to say to the parents and to the public, these are the buildings, this is the time, this is the meal, this is the menu. And I gotta say, today is my last day of school in Greeley-Evans District 6. And I still have not submitted my applications for my summer food service programs because I'm still waiting on principals to decide whether or not that program will operate Monday through Wednesday or Monday through Thursday for June. And so it's not an excuse, it is simply an explanation of, as a school food authority, I don't believe that other summer food service meal service providers struggle with the same thing. They, you find a low-income housing population and you go to that building administrator and you say, can we come here and offer summer meals? But as a school food service program, we're at the mercy of the buildings and the people who dictate the buildings and the people who dictate what goes on in that building. And so I would have loved to have had a newsletter or a flyer in every folder that kids took home today so that as a parent, you could have searched through the backpack and found the thing. But I can't do that because I don't have building administration agreeing that I can offer their, that their front door is going to be unlocked during that time period. So
Could it be something?
Sorry, go ahead.
Could it be something more generic? So instead of it being detailed, information, could it just be, go on to, this website to check out, summer meals programming area or something like that? I don't know.
So in Greeley, and I've really tried to encourage this across the entire state for school food authorities, but we really leverage that text food or comida to 877-877. Like it's on the back of my t-shirt. It's on every flyer, it's on every yard sign. It's, I'm going to get baseball hats done this summer because at the 11th hour, all I can say to a parent is text food to this number and the GPS thing will tell you the closest place to go to. And then in the meantime, and I know Jeffco does this, and so Jeffco has 2 buses. I think they're only going to operate 1 this summer, but we do pick 1 or 2 locations that we can say with complete assurance, Centennial Elementary School will open on Tuesday and they will be open until August 9th and they will serve breakfast for 2 hours and they will serve lunch for 2 hours. And so I have a few, but out of the 52 applications that I have pending for Greeley, I can only guarantee you 4 of them right now because those are the 4 sites that I have had that assurance from the building administrator that said, I'm all yours. Whatever you want to do in my building, do it. But I have the other 48 that we're still pending. And I know that Jeffco experiences something very, very similar. And I know that Cherry Creek does. And I know that Douglas is, wondering, should we be serving summer meals in Douglas County schools, which they're not currently doing. So I think there is so much opportunity, you guys. I can't say it enough that there are food service directors in this state who want to be doing this and don't know how to talk to their building administrators, let alone their parents.
So we have some challenges.
Yeah, but I think we have the resources, right? Like it's so encouraging to hear this conversation and to listen to everything that Teresa just said. I feel like I mean, I wish the summer conference wasn't 2 weeks away. I want to make a whole day for DPS to talk about the success that they've had, because we have some big challenges, but we have all the answers, or at least we have the opportunity to start developing those answers.
Well, Teresa will be speaking all year, once a month, during the school year for 2020. Yeah, there's good stuff here. So when Carrie and I talked, next slide is just going to be a placeholder. So again, if you can, we'll send this last slide out, and you can kind of think about what would be helpful and send questions and think about what we might do in the next meeting. We wanted to make sure that folks knew, what is also on the radar screen. So the great thing that Carrie just mentioned is that they're looking at a full-scale implementation grant that would support a lot of the things that have been brought up, and especially Daniel that you were bringing up. But we wanted some things not to fall off the radar screen. So the school meals promotion, again, is a stopgap that we're doing right now, but there will be long-term planning, that will involve this work group and CDE and CDPHE. Certainly the 4-day school issue has not dropped off, and it's actually become even kind of more acute as we think about the gaps in summer meals, and we're getting information from the counties. It's also, these are most of those same counties that are dealing with that. So that kind of being on the long-term radar screen. And then one thing that we just sort of tossed around, and it's somewhat on the radar screen of county directors that are interested in SNAP outreach. And certainly, we could send a sort of a request to Workgroup 4, because anytime SNAP is increased in a certain area, it leads to increased direct certification. So one of the things that we've talked about in that group and with other folks is, if we have the data analysis to identify schools that are on the verge of either CEP or have a high number of kids who are not enrolled in SNAP, and Workgroup 4 could really come up with a strategy to target those, it's going to be of mutual benefit. So families will get, and kiddos will get SNAP, and the schools will get the direct cert. And so there's this like exponential value add to that type of strategy. So again, this is going to be a placeholder as we do this, the kind of focusing on the stopgap, but wanted to get that on the radar screen of folks.
And I was just having this conversation this morning that we just got our CEP data that's being reported, but it does look like those numbers are decreasing. So that's decreasing. So direct certification decreasing. I don't know what that really means or looks like specifically, but we can start looking at how.
Because it could be gentrification, and if you can push out, it could just be, a lack of access to application assisters, and so it really could, it really could help the targeted outreach piece. So just keeping that on the radar screen, long-term while we work on these, so we're capturing all of these things. So.
Great. Does anyone have anything else to add? Any final thoughts? Exciting. Yeah. Really exciting. It's amazing. I'm still just blown away at just what's happened with the summer outreach and just the response we're getting. It's really significant. I think it's really significant, though, that it's raising awareness of the fact that there's not enough access and not enough summer sites. So not only are we getting the message out to those families to participate, which is really that first piece of participating in the sites that are there, but really raising awareness through this coordinated effort. So, yeah. Okay, well, feel free, as always, to email me if you have any ideas for the agenda. We'll just keep working with all this feedback we've talked about and incorporate it into future meetings. We will also look at scheduling the field trip to the summer mill site. So, yeah, but thank you so much.
When is the June meeting?
They're always the fourth Thursday of the month, so that one will be on June 27th.
So would we rather just do the field trip and not have, it seems like we do have a lot to do too, so Is that something that people would want as replaced a meeting?
Hey, Carrie.
Yeah.
Since we're going to be meeting with the 20 largest school districts and the 5 food banks on June 10th, maybe we could think about at the field trip, we could just have like a report back, like just a report out about what we talked about and how it went, and how those, you know, school districts and food banks think they can expand summer feeding in future years.
Okay.
So that meeting is June 10th.
Okay.
Is that, I want everyone, I want to invite everyone in this room, but I also want to be respectful of the people who have said, you know, let's just have it be Feeding Colorado and School Nutrition Association. So I want to make sure that we're able to give a full report to everybody on this work group.
Yep, I think I will add that.
Okay, thanks.
Great, well, thank you, everyone.
Have a great day and happy last day of school, everybody, when it comes.